If you're a fan of heavy metal, then you should have the CMS Network app on your phone. With 5 great shows featuring all the best artists in heavy metal of all genres, as well as streaming radio, video on demand, and of course heavy metal television, the CMS Network app is the app you should have. Just go to your app store and do a search for CMS Network, and you'll just install it, and you will have all the metal you'll ever need. Stop surfing around for it. It's all right here on the CMS Network app.
All right, Aftershocks TV, Matt and Chris are back with you with another episode for you guys and gals. And we got a great one for you today. We'd like to welcome to the show from the almighty Incubus. We've got Mr. Brandon Boyd with us. Brandon, how are you, man? Thanks for coming on Aftershocks.
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good. Doing great. Thanks. Appreciate it, man. Well, let's get right into it. You got a new solo album that's coming out. It's called ECHOES and COCCOONS. It's out March 11th. It's your second solo record. It's your first one in 12 years since the Wild Trapeze back in 2010. And today you just released the third single from the record titled Diamond My Dryer. It's available now. Go check it out to the listeners out there. And from my knowledge of what this song represents, Brandon, this is a track that I think a lot of people are definitely going to be able to relate to in terms of the self-reflective message of what the world has gone through over the past 2 years. So why don't you just start us off by talking about Diamond My Dryer and what you're conveying to the listener lyrically on this track?
Yeah. I feel compelled to start by saying thank you first and foremost, but also that Echoes and Cocoons is going to be my third solo record. I put out a solo record that I wrote with a guy named Brendan O'Brien in
Sons of Seas, yeah.
Sons of the Sea. Yeah, I probably should have called it Brandon Boyd.
Okay.
Sons of the Sea, but it leads to a little bit of confusion. But yeah, so this will be the third solo record. But yes, Diamond My Dryer. This is actually the first song that I wrote with the person I wrote this album with. This guy called John Congleton. He's a very known producer and songwriter, and he and I connected during like the first, I don't know, it was like the first probably 6 months of what was the heavy duty lockdown. So we were kind of trapped at home, and it was such a weird period of time. I don't know how else to describe it. I guess I don't have to describe it. You guys experienced a version of it as well as did, most people in the world. My dog is alerting me to something over here. But, and this is probably not an unusual experience for most people in the first part of lockdown too. I spent it with my girlfriend, who wasn't officially living with me at that point, but things were so weird and uncertain, quite scary. I was like, you should just you're welcome to just stay here with me. And she was like, okay, great. And so we had this amazing experience where we kind of like really bonded and really kind of like leaned into each other and got to know each other so much more closely than we would have otherwise. And it was sort of blissful for quite a few months, and then it just went south. Like once we really started to get to know each other, like it just kind of was like, whoa. And she went back to her place, and it felt like we were sort of breaking up, and I was, writing this music with John Congleton, and this lyric started to sort of drift into my field. And I suppose the song is essentially saying to this person that you were the clearest part of this experience. Like, come back, please. Like you were a kind of, you were a light post in a very dense fog. You were the signal amongst all of this deafening noise. Like, come back, I miss you. That's essentially the sentiment of the song.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, speaking of lyrics, I mean, I think the one thing that artists like yourself have had a lot of over the last 2 years that you normally don't have is time to write and record music, which is why obviously this is your first solo record, like you said, in about 8-9 years or so. But I would also think that having that time has also led to a significant difference, possibly, in the type of lyrical content that you normally compose in your music. Not only because of the influence of what you're going through in terms of the pandemic and all the madness that's engulfing the world right now, but also considering that there is such a higher level of uncertainty right now as well in the music business more than ever. And we're talking about, of course, a business that's insanely uncertain to begin with. But so I'm going to assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that I guess the headspace that you were in when writing lyrics for this record is probably a place that you probably haven't been to in a very long time, if not ever before. No,
I would venture to agree with you there. I think that there's something to be said for everyone learning how to grapple with uncertainty, even under, quote, normal circumstances. So these circumstances that we've all been enduring for the last 22, 23 months are, for us, highly abnormal. And so those of us that kind of deal in uncertainty, like with a chaotic job landscape like the music industry, there were parts of it that were terrifying. It was like, oh, wow. Because we make a living for all intents and purposes by touring.
Sure. Right.
And that's not going to happen over, during that period of time. It was the furthest thing from anybody's mind. Concerts are just sort of the perfect super spreader event. You know what I mean? Right. It's like you couldn't ask for a better, especially with indoors. Like, let's all gather together and yell and drink and, smash into each other. That's a good idea. What's amazing though is like, even knowing that now, it's like, wow, these are definitely super spreader events, even under normal circumstances. I still miss it terribly. Like I want to leap into a crowd of strangers and like touch all of them. But yeah, I suppose that I've had my kind of my intellectual feelers into the realm of uncertainty now for as long as I can remember. And I've always been sort of fascinated with the concept of uncertainty. There's been part of almost like an ethos, if you will, that I have been leaning towards most of my life, where if I could hold being uncertain and be able to relax into this place of uncertainty, it would be a little bit like learning how to get a good night's sleep on a bed of nails. Wouldn't that be cool? Then if we were in moments of like certainty, or you had like a nice plush hotel linen bed, like, imagine how well you would sleep. You know what I'm saying? Sure. So this, like, going back to your question, this period of time was scary, tumultuous, frustrating, head scratching, brain bleedy at times, I would even say. But what a fantastic opportunity to deeply reflect on what's happening, not only in one's own life, but as your life intersects with other people's lives, and how do I meet with what my culture essentially dictates quietly. It's been such a fascinating place. I could go on forever about this, but I don't want to dominate the conversation with just that.
No, absolutely. I definitely hear you, man. Well, lyrics aside, let's get into the music now. Obviously, the first thing that's very noticeable from the onset is the musical direction. It's very different from anything I think you pretty much have done before. It's got more of an ambient sort of atmospheric bass rather than a rock bass, in my opinion. And one of the reasons, obviously, I know musicians do indeed have solo projects is that they're able to, do things musically that they normally don't or are unable to do with their primary band or project. So I guess talk a bit about, the musical direction on the record and why you decided to go down a different path than you did from your previous work.
It's interesting because it's not as if Incubus hasn't been diverse. We've kind of been all over the place, but I think for all intents and purposes, we are a rock band. It's rock music. That's sort of the forward-facing aesthetic. We're just a rock band that has given itself permission to move into, a multitude of directions. Like we've over the course of 30 years we've been a band, like we've experimented with so many different ways of writing a song, and it's been really fun and really gratifying. And I think that's why we're still a band, if I'm being honest, beyond the fact that we just, we love each other and we love making music together. There's also a very kind of broad permission to go, as long as it sounds cool, like we don't care what, like stylistically, where it's coming from. But that being said, music is, to me, it's infinite in its possibilities. And so I am infinitely curious as to the ways in which a song can be crafted or the directions a song can go. And I grew up on rock music. I came of age in the late 80s into the early 90s. And I feel so lucky to have been an adolescent into a teenager right around that period of time, because rock music was in such an incredible place, with the kind of more glam, if for lack of a better way of describing it, more sort of like peacocky rock, right, going into more of a humble but big, I don't know how to describe it, but like what is described as grunge. I hate that word, but we all kind of know what we're referring to when we say that. But I remember when I was 15, it was the year we started Incubus. In that year, in one sitting, I got the record, Alice in Chains, Dirt. I got Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic. I got Soundgarden, Super Unknown, and Nirvana's Nevermind, and a Primus record. I forget which record it was, but it may have been Frizzle Fry. But like there was so much just incredible rock music coming out. And so it was such an inspiring time that the logical step for my buddies, Jose Pasillas and Michael Anziger, and I was like, we should start our own band. Right. And we're going to sound like these bands, But I say that because rock music has definitely left an indelible mark on me, and it continues to. But I listen to and appreciate and absorb a lot of music, arguably just as much that isn't sort of like a rock aesthetic. Like I love Hindustani music. I love that's like Indian classical. I love like Pakistani devotional music, like people like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan has got the most incredible, to me, he's like the best male singer in the history of male singers. And then a close second is like Jeff Buckley, who's definitely influenced by Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. But if you only heard Buckley, you'd be like, oh, this guy's from a different planet, Right. So it's like music just comes in from so many different angles. I started hearing some of these tracks. They were basically just like rough song ideas with no lyrics and no vocals, that John Congleton started sending me, and Diamond My Dryer was the first one, and it immediately just clicked on something in me that needed to be tapped into. And it was like that song happened in a matter of like a week, I think. And I just heard the basic track of it, and the melody arrived immediately, and the lyric arrived very shortly thereafter. And so everything that we would send back and forth to each other was like, ooh, like it's like you're discovering a door in a house that you've lived in your whole life, and you didn't know there was a door there, and you like crank it open, you're like, oh, there's a whole other room here. Let's play in here. This is awesome. That's basically how it felt. That's a long answer to your question. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, it sounds like, and obviously outsider looking in at this, that this is so much more of a passion thing for you than, and I'm not saying that Incubus is not, but let's be honest, Incubus is about commerce as well as creativity. I mean, at this point in the band's career, you got to think about the commerce. You record so that you can tour and make money, where this, I'm assuming you don't. I'm assuming you do this strictly for passion. Does that make doing something like this more, I'm going to use the word fun, but more fun or more creative for you, in that you can explore anything that you want to do with absolutely no bounds?
There's some truth to that. Incubus has become I know in our lives, for us in the band, it's a little bit of like a juggernaut. You know, it's something that's bigger than we ever thought it was going to be, and it's lasted longer than any of us could have ever imagined it would, which is incredible. You know, and we could fall kind of fall victim to the sort of market forces that would drag us into doing what we do and making decisions only based on market forces. And I think we've done a pretty good job of balancing those things. You know, I still feel really proud of all of the music that we've made together as a band, even our most recent stuff. And, you know, if we were going to be more crass and sort of overtly capitalist about it, we would have written 15 more versions of the song Drive.
Right.
But we haven't done that. You know, we've felt, like I said earlier, like we've continually reaffirmed each other's creative curiosities and allowed each other to go down weird rabbit holes and wander around musically. And that's honestly why we're still a band. But with making solo music, it's part of the creative process to allow oneself to be boundless. You know what I mean? Like, and I encourage that in all the guys in the band too. And everybody does it in different ways. Some of the other guys in the band also do solo projects, but you know, Mike, for instance, has done some incredible production and studio work with some, you know, like more pop dance type things that have been massive successes. And he obviously really enjoys doing that. And I love that. Mikey also is he's a tech entrepreneur.
Okay.
And he's spearheaded a technology called Mix Halo, he calls it. And it's basically going to be available in every major music venue in America soon. And it's phenomenal. So it's like I think we implicitly and explicitly encourage each other to, like, oh, you find something down that rabbit hole, brother, go.
Sure.
See what you find. Because we all feel compelled to come back to square one, which for all of us, I feel like is Incubus. And hopefully it will be for a long time.
Sure. Now, that being said, though, do you look at your solo career away from Incubus and look at it as trying to expand your brand, so to speak, trying to do maybe in a way like a Corey Taylor type of a thing, where obviously he's Slipknot, but you know him for Stone Sour and you know him for solo, and you know he does many different things. Do you look at your solo stuff, which is so different from Incubus, as that kind of branding opportunity for yourself?
There's some of that in there. You know, I would be a fool if I didn't recognize some of the more sort of business-minded aspects of being in the music industry. And so I have awareness of those types of things. But what I've tried to do is bring in people that are far more qualified at, you know, the branding and the market savvy, those parts of it. It's quite literally a different part of our brains that operates in those ways. And when there are people that are really, really good at it, I have a high level of respect, because it's also indicative of a kind of creativity, you know, and I have some of it, but most of my skill set is more in the sort of right hemisphere of the brain, where it's sort of more intuitive, weird, creative, high novelty. I'm the one who's like, ooh, rabbit hole, you know, I get down it for a couple of months. And that can be sometimes antithetical to what's the right thing to do from a branding perspective. So I am lucky to work with some people who are really good at that, and they help me to learn about it as well. Does that make sense? I'm basically saying that I'm not a great salesman.
Okay. Well, Brad, you know, I mean, one of the things that, you know, some people might not, everyone knows you obviously as the vocalist from Incubus, but what a lot of people might not know about you as well, that you are very engaged within the art world. You've released, you know, some illustration and photography books. that have song lyrics and deep thought writings of yours in them. You've done art exhibitions, etc. And a lot of times, we do hear from artists who pursue other avenues of artistic expression, like solo projects and other ventures outside of music, like you do. They say that they weren't able to have those outlets, that they would sort of feel boxed in as an artist, and thus it could have an effect on their overall sort of passion for their primary artistic outlet, which in your case would be, Incubus. Are you someone who, who would feel indeed sort of boxed in or trapped if you didn't have these artistic outlets that you have with your solo projects and with your art, or if you weren't allowed to have them, I should say? And do you think it would affect what you do with the band?
I think that it would absolutely have a negative effect if I was this is a big if, because I'm not in the band we're not a band that tries to lord over each other. We jokingly talk about this where it's as if we're in this long-term polyamorous marriage, like we have, each of us have many lovers. But we come back into, the big cushy marital bed that is Incubus, and we have a fantastic experience together. And I really do believe that it is our love and admiration and respect for each other that gives us that sense of like trust, that it's like, you're going to go off here and you're going to do this for a while. Okay. And we know you're going to make decisions that are righteous and respectful of what we've made together. That's really the only rule I think that we have. And it's almost unspoken. It's like, don't be an asshole. Oh shit, I did it. Sorry. Twice.
Go out here. It's all good.
It's all good. Well, Brandon, I wanted to ask you a little bit of just about when you look back at it now and you look back at your career, you guys started, considering what Incubus is and has been, you guys started in like the oddest way. I mean, you guys played with such heavy bands at the beginning, whether it was Pantera or Soulfly or Black Sabbath, or, I saw you the first time on Ozfest, which was all really heavy bands, and I've always been curious because you didn't follow that path and, try to mimic that. You guys stayed your path, even though you weren't playing with bands, that were in the same, space at first. Was that exposure alone enough for you guys? Or did you find people like fans at those shows that discovered you and stayed along, for the history of the band?
Yeah, we definitely, I think, found a lot of people at those sort of Ozfest and other heavy music festivals or heavy music tours that we opened up for. I think we found a lot of core fans in those areas because, like I said earlier, it's like it is essentially rock music. It's just rock music that's been aesthetically tweaked off into, a different direction. And I think that just fans of music can appreciate that, where there's a lot of the ethos is the same. It's still, we still love, like, I think all of us in the band, we still love a good, solid, just like heavy riff. We call it, when a riff is really good, we call it smelling the mustache, because you go like this. You basically you perch your upper lip towards your nose, and as if you had a mustache, and you nod your head and you're like, yeah, that's heavy. Like that still just has an amazing effect on us. Like when Mikey plays a smell the mustache type riff and everybody in the room does it, or like, then that's when we dive into that stuff. But yeah, there was something also in those early days when Sharon and Ozzy invited us onto 2 Ozfests and the Black Sabbath reunion tour, which we were playing right before Pantera and then Black Sabbath. Those were incredible experiences, not only because of the fact that we're like fans of those bands from a very young age and fans of those artists, but also because it was an amazing place to find some early semblance of a creative identity. And you don't have to like not like a band in order to figure out what you don't want to do. You know what I mean? Like, I remember watching Pantera and watching Phil Anselmo every night for a couple of months and being like, this guy is so gnarly. I could never do what he's doing.
Right.
And I know that I don't want to do exactly what he's doing, because not only I can't do that, but it would be kind of sacrilegious to try. And so it inspired me in that way. But then, we went on tour with one of my favorite bands growing up, Mr. Bungle. And we did this tour called Snowcore. I think it was in 1999. Yeah, it was with Incubus, System of a Down, Mr. Bungle, and a band called Puya. And I remember watching Bungle every night and being like, I have no idea how to do what this guy is doing, but I want to try. So in Mike, I found something where I was more like, he spoke more to some of the things that I feel like I knew how to do, but then he goes into these like crazy, like Japanese hardcore screaming things, which I still to this day, I'm like, how do you do that? And he still knows how to do it, which is remarkable. And then we even got a chance to tour with Faith No More. We did a run in Australia with Faith No More and Soundgarden. And that was more recently. I think that was like in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a little earlier than that. And those were two of my favorite bands growing up. And we would play, and then I would walk over to, there was like two stages side by side, and I'd go over and I'd watch Chris and the guys in Soundgarden, and like still learning, even though we're an established band at this point, I'd watched this guy who was so inspirational to me as a kid. And then I would come back to the stage we played at and then watch Faith No More close out the night. And once again, marvel at what those guys know how to do. Yeah. I don't remember the original question. I'm just rambling now. Sorry.
It's all good. Nice. Well, Brandon, obviously, man, you have this brand new solo record, Echoes and Cocoons. It comes out March 11th. There are singles out there anywhere that you listen to music now that you can check it out to get a feel for it. And where should we tell people to go to keep up with you and to get Echoes and Cocoons and keep up with Incubus and all that other stuff?
I suppose, you can find us on social media and everything. The further we get into the internet age, the more places you'll be able to find us. I have a Substack publication that's going to be coming out soon. I have an art website, brandonboyd.me. I think probably Instagram and Twitter and things like that are probably an easy place for people to find us these days.
All right. Awesome. One more time, the album Echoes and Cocoons. It's out March 11th. And Brandon, thanks so much for joining us here on Aftershocks.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, you guys.
Right, man. Take care.
Man.
Okay, metalheads, you've been complaining that there has not been a channel that plays all of the heavy metal videos from past, present, and future for years and years at this point. Well, that time is over. Heavy Metal Television is back. HeavyMetalTelevision.net is the website. Go there. You can see videos playing 24/7, 365, all the time. All the best from the old school, the new school, and everything in between. Check it out, HeavyMetalTelevision.net. It is where the metal is.